not that short. Come on, y'all.
I am.
The keys in the cell phone are on the ground.
Check,
You know
check.
it's about to get real. Hey, everybody. My name is Ashley Peacock. I am a local talent developer. I represent Foundry, which is a development group. We're headquartered. Offices and creative space are directly above you. And after we're done today, I'd love to invite you up and just have a walkthrough and to continue the discussion in a little bit more intimate way. What we're doing here is transforming hobbyists into professionals. That's the core of my work. What I do at Foundry is I point people toward themselves. I help artists to stabilize their worth, and I help them to carve out a path as a professional. But oftentimes I find them in the state of a hobbyist. One of the mechanisms that we employ at Foundry to do this work, you are engaging right now. It's called the Industry Forum. The Industry Forum is a place where we gather and we put emerging artists in front of industry influencers to have a dialogue. You can actually have one-on-one conversation with people that you don't normally have access to, like this. And you can say, hey, tell me how to get where I want to go. With that said, I want to introduce our panelists, Jaime Wilkins and Nate Dorough. Nate, if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do, and what brought you there.
I'm now the president. I was the owner for 8 years of Fusion Shows and recently sold to the Crowfoot. So now the president of Fusion Shows and one of the founders. I spend most of my day in front of a laptop building spreadsheets as the talent buyer for Fusion Shows. So I book 300 to 400 shows a year. Between my side of things and the Crowfoot side of things, we put on about 1,000 events a year as the total company, and that includes weddings and things like this and all kinds, just anything that can be considered an event. But I'm pretty much focused almost entirely in the concert space. We present events at the Crowfoot and all the various rooms there. We do shows up here from time to time. We use the Loft and Max Bar in Lansing. We do the Magic Stick in Detroit, the Loving Touch in Ferndale, the Pyramid Scheme in Grand Rapids, Bells in Kalamazoo, Blind Pig in Ann Arbor. And yeah, I'm 38. I'm married. I have a 2.5-year-old kid who's awesome. And that's me in a nutshell.
Spreadsheets, super rock and roll.
Yeah, dude.
Get used to
I
spreadsheets.
can show you some magic. That's the whole thing, right? You got that PowerPoint I sent you, right, about
We're going to fire it
spreadsheets?
up right now.
Okay, everybody get your laptops out, open Excel. Actually, not Excel. No one uses Excel. Google Drive. Okay, lesson 1, do things that are free. So don't buy Excel. No one uses it. All right, moving on.
Jamie.
Okay. I'll just let you guys know, and I always say this when I first start speaking, I don't like speaking in front of people, but I do love talking to people about the music industry and what I know about it, because I think knowledge is power. So if I stutter a little bit, just please bear with me.
We can't see them anyway, these lights. It's just like...
I started out as a DJ when I was 18. I toured with the Vans Warped Tour, the X Games. I did the Olympics. I toured with a couple other extreme sporting tours, including the Tony Hawk Tour. I DJ'd for the opening act of the Public Enemy Tour in 1999. I've DJ'd in a couple different bands, put out a couple different songs. Almost signed to a label as an MC, but the deal was bad, so we turned it down. And then I got into the business side of it, more so as a stage manager. And then I moved to Detroit in 2008, where I finally got a degree in public relations with a specialization in music business. And then I started with Jonathan Witz Associates, they're the producers of Arts, Beats, and Eats, River Days, Winter Blast, and a couple other festivals. I am now their music director and production manager. And I also just recently started with FunFest as their stage manager. I also work with AEG as a production assistant from time to time.
So if you're a band in the southern half of Michigan and you're taking your live performance seriously, you're going to run into one of these two people or someone that works for them. That's why I brought them here today. And you get to ask them questions. But first, I'm going to ask them some questions. So I was an artist for years and years. I had several record deals that I didn't say no to that I should have. And I actually met you when I was in the middle of one of those situations. And you had, Jaime, my immediate respect. I saw you as an influencer. And I had enough of a track record in my career that I developed the instincts to be able to pick people out of a crowd. Like, that's the person to know. And I'm so grateful to have become your friend as well as your colleague. But I watched you at work. I watched how you conducted yourself. I watched how you handled artists. And I couldn't imagine the scope of your work coupled with what you must deal with from artists, because you do a lot. You do more than a talent buyer. You see artists from 0 to 10, local bands just starting out to well-established national acts, and something that I wanted to know is, what do you see as a common issue that plagues the majority of bands that you work with that they just don't seem to be getting? What do they need to be working on that they chronically aren't?
So, in my answer, this is twofold. The first is musically, their stage presence. Like, they can put out a phenomenal album, but then when they're on stage, their crowd interaction or whatever is just lacking. And so, yeah, so definitely stage presence is one of them. And then businessly, the way they treat people, the way they talk to people. A lot of artists off the rip, I'm an artist, I'm out here, I'm on stage, you book me, like, and they just come out there. Can I swear? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, you
They
can.
come out.
Fuck yes, you can.
They come out cocky as fuck, and they talk down to the sound person, they talk down to the stage manager, they'll talk down to the crowd. Like, you can't do that and even artists that are very well established, they get to a point and they do the same thing. And I don't care if you're having a bad day. Every time you're on stage or every time you're at a show, or even when you're emailing somebody or calling somebody, you're emailing them and calling them or submitting, asking them to do something for you. You cannot come at them like, you should book me, I'm this, I'm that. Yep. Or if you get turned down, well, that's your mistake, that's your bad, you're gonna regret this. Really? Because there's 200 other bands that I can deal with that I don't have to deal with this attitude from. And I don't care how good you are. There have been bands at the top of our list that are no longer allowed at our festivals because they treat our sound guys like shit. So.
Thank you. And fuck yes, you can swear. Nate, I asked you this question last night. Nate and I were hanging out at the Michigander show last night, and some of you were there. Was that not lit or what?
Whoa.
So I said, Nate, you know, the forum tomorrow, I just want to know, what do you see bands needing to work on that they aren't? And last night he said, kind of off the top of his head, man, songs. But now that you've had time to ruminate on that answer, I would love for you to expand on that.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to songs, and it's easy to say when you're watching Jason from Michigander, like, do what he does, because he's probably the best songwriter that I know right now working locally. Whatever is in his brain is on a level that's like not looking at being in a club, it's looking at being in an arena or headlining a festival someday or something like that. That doesn't mean that the songs are for everyone, but he's just operating on a different level from that. And you can't, some of that stuff, I mean, you can teach some of that. You obviously work in music production and things like that and know that, you know, there are ways to look at things, but there's certain things you're born with too. And Jason just kind of has some of that, where it's like he got out of bed in the morning ahead of me. You know, you talk about all the cool stuff you've done DJing and touring the world, and I'm super stoked when I can like complete a level on the second setting of Guitar Hero or whatever, you know, like that's my musical talent, other than, you know, making spreadsheets. But I always go back to the same analogy. I'm a big analogy guy, a big metaphor guy. And I talk about bands being a table, and everybody looks at me like, what? Or artists. Every time I say bands, just know that I mean artists. You could be a poet, you could be a painter, you can be whatever it is you're trying to do and find some economy to and like make it or get paid or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Artists are a table, and a table is held up by legs, and each of those legs can be a piece of the pie, whether it's the marketing or the stage presence or the business communication or just not being an asshole, or all of those things are legs that hold up the table. And the thing that I think artists struggle with the most is realizing that each of those legs has to be equal strength. You could be a really great songwriter and a really great performer and a real dick. You could be a really great business person and have pretty terrible songs. You know, and you can imagine just there could be 100 legs to that table too, depending on what it is that you're trying to do and identifying who it is that you want to be and where you want to go. I always make sure that, you know, if you think signing with a label or signing with an agent or signing with a manager is gonna like all of a sudden just make your band grow, you have to grow all those other things at the same time. So if you get better at being a musician and being a performer, you also have to get better at the business and the accounting and the marketing and the social media and all those different things. It kind of has to come up together. Otherwise, you end up with this crooked table that then falls over, if we want to keep the analogy going forever, because I absolutely do.
Well, you mentioned a table. That's a really great analogy, because I think so often people in bands, artists, if you will, they look at management or agency as somebody to make up for something that's not there. Like they're the tablecloth. And if they get a great tablecloth, you won't notice that one of the legs is missing. And maybe you could expand on what you see management, for instance, doing or not doing for bands. I see a lot of bands say, well, we just need to get a manager and then everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We just need to get signed and then that will be taken care of. Now, I remember hanging out with Bob Doyle, Garth Brooks' manager in Nashville, and he says, we've had a handshake agreement.
Name drop.
It's okay to name drop in this industry. That opens doors, as long as you're not a douchebag about it.
That's cooler than any name drop
hanging out
I've
with
got.
Garth Brooks back in Nashville.
Now, like the coolest name drop I have now is the guy who hung out with Garth Brooks' manager.
Oh my God.
So
No, but like Bob's a legit businessman. He's
Right.
super low key, but he said we've had a handshake deal for Garth's entire career,
Yep.
and I don't do shit except for point him towards doors that he opens himself. I just stand back and watch him work. Now, if you're an artist and you think a manager is going to work for you, like do work that you don't do, you're sadly mistaken. A manager creates work that you do. Can you expand on that?
yeah, I guess I didn't say in my little intro, I also pretty much always have one client on the side that I'm managing their career. I'm with an artist from Detroit named Shortly right now, and before that it was Flint Eastwood, and before that it was American Opera, and before that it was Koji, and before that I helped La Dispute get started, and like I'm really good at getting that artist from the ground to a certain level, and then I generally let them kind of go. And it's the same thing. There's no contract. It's just once it doesn't feel like we should be working together anymore, we move on. But I do think that acts that are running around looking to get signed, you're going to get signed. This industry will see you before you see them, for sure. A&R is insane right now, and it's kind of on the agency side. There are acts being signed to agencies, and Shortly's it is the same story. She's got 1,200 Facebook likes and 9,000 or 10,000 Spotify listens, and like that should be able to, by somebody who's like making it, could happen in an hour or in a day. And she's got a label and an agent now, and they're looking so far down like into like developing talent like the first couple times they get in front of a microphone. So like just worry about the craft, the art, the talent, the songs, and getting people in front of what you're doing. That's the key. And then the management and the agent and the label, what they're good at and what they want to be doing is handling things that are coming in. They don't want to really be out searching, and they still do. They have to search, and you have to go out and look for bigger opportunities. But you want that artist, that talent, to be so, just such an explosion of interest that you're just managing what's coming in and then figuring out of what's coming in you want to do and what you don't want to do. And then you find that one opportunity where you're like, okay, we're on this level right now, and the next step is to be onto this level. And if it's not clearly just happening because they're the fastest growing thing in the world, then what little fire can I light? And it's not like, hey, so-and-so up there, like, can you take us with you? It's like, what can we do on the stages that we have to get them to look down and be like, come with us, let's go. So it's such a backwards thought. A lot of people are like, if I just get signed, if we just do this, if we just, then we can get signed. But it's like, don't worry about getting signed. You'll be signed. You'll have more if you're really doing it and you're really drawing people and you're really being impressive and you're pulling off what Michigander pulled off last night, which is having 400 people singing the words back at you, like, whoa, and people are going to notice that, and he'll take phone calls over the next couple months like, hey, I heard through the grapevine so-and-so was there, and they said that your set was great, and I want to fly out and see you, and then you get into, like, all the things like signing bad contracts and things like that and trying to avoid that. And that's where building a team helps you, is, like, helping you, like, weed through the bad,
Building a team. Or just go on The Voice.
Right.
That
was our joke earlier. We were just going to say that, like, we're just going to encourage you guys to go try out for The Voice.
Yeah, just go on The Voice. Mic drop. See you later.
I mean, Ashley's going to beat you. He's going to win next
year.
So,
Jamie, I remember at one time you telling me that bands constantly approach you to manage them, and you're not really here for that. So you deal with managers, you deal with agents, you deal with labels. What's your take on bands not being realistic about what those partnerships can and can't do for them?
I do. I hear it all the time that bands want managers, or like you were just saying, if we could just get on tour with this person or that person. And not to repeat what you were saying, but I think bands need to master their craft. That's what they need to be concentrating on. I heard recently a quote that says, don't chase the money, chase the vision. And if you chase the vision, everything else will fall into place. And so we were talking about this before. You were talking about, like, working out. You don't work out for 2 weeks and then have, your summer body already. You have to work out all winter or all year long to have a summer body for next year.
I see you pointing at me.
When I was in high school, I wanted to play soccer in Europe. And I knew what my competition was. And so I came home every day after soccer practice and practiced more, an hour to 2 hours more. And I did this every day for a year, every day. I did it quite often for a full year, and the next year I went out and I tried out for the team that went to Europe, and I made it. When I started DJing, I knew what my competition was, and I knew that the way I would be looked at as a female DJ. And I did not want anybody, like, if anything went wrong with my equipment, I didn't want anybody to have to tell me how to fix my own equipment. So I started working for an audio company. And so I learned how to solder cables and fix speakers and all that stuff all together. But I think bands need to concentrate on it, and then practicing every day. And once I started practicing every day, I started getting noticed. I started getting asked to play more shows and more events. And then I got, I was in that audio company was providing the audio for the X Games. And from there, from my reputation as a DJ as well, they asked me to be one of their DJs. So I just think bands really need to focus on mastering their craft, whether it be practicing all the time, songwriting, developing your songwriting, looking for classes and tutorials on how to develop your songwriting, sitting in, doing jam sessions, all that stuff. So concentrating on mastering your craft is your thing, and the others will fall into place.
So I was talking with a colleague of mine the other day, and he's a full-time musician, and he was mentioning some adjustments he was making to his daily work routine. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I had this sinking feeling in my stomach when I realized that This was a unique conversation, and it shouldn't be. The problem with the daily work routine of most musicians is that they don't have one. And I was mentioning earlier, one of my favorite things about travel to places like Nashville and LA is that I see a culture of work. You have to work every day. That's just what's expected of you. There's a culture of an expected amount of drive and grind that we don't see in Flint in the creative community. We're beginning to see pockets of it in Detroit. And one of my artists has 6 publishing companies interested in his catalog. So we're going to go down to Nashville and have a bunch of really exciting meetings. But we're probably going to say no to all of them. I'm planning on it. He doesn't know this yet. So I talked with a colleague of mine in Nashville who's been in the business for a while, and I said, here's the situation. Help me see things accurately. And he reminded me of some truths that Jaime and Nate just brought up. You have to walk into meetings with built-in value. You have to walk into meetings with leverage. You can't expect a partnership with a label, a publishing company, an agent, or a manager to make up for something that you don't have. I have an unproven artist with an unproven catalog. There's no currency there except for the merit of the songs themselves. They're fantastic songs. Every single one of them is a single. However, what kind of deal can he really expect? Likely, the publisher is going to have 12 other offers extended, and they're hoping something sticks, but everybody else gets hung out to dry. Are we going for cuts? Are we going for sync? What's the end game here for the publisher? Why don't we just go down, shake some hands, get the artist and the catalog on their radar, back away, say, cool, thanks for your time. I work the fuck out of him, build some currency around his brand, and then come back for a better deal later. Because I want to walk into a meeting willing to walk out. That's leverage. I want to walk into a partnership not needing the partnership. That gives me a better partnership. So, Nate, as somebody in a position to say no to a lot of bands, what gets your attention? The way that a band conducts themselves, the way they write an email, the way they put on a live show, the way they walk into a room, what gets your attention?
What Jaime just said about soldering her own connections and fixing her own stuff, that's so huge. Like, I've never even, that's such a micro thing in electronic board, pedal boards and all that shit. I don't deal with any of that kind of stuff in any, whether it's a guitar or whether it's a DJ setup or whatever. But walking into any meeting or sending an email or whatever and just not being impressive in any fashion is the biggest buzzkill for me. That's like the opposite of your question, I guess, is like, that's what can turn me off right away, is coming in and just like not putting my name at the top of the email, not saying hi, not being a goddamn human being, because you know what? I get 500 emails a week from potential artists or artists I've worked with before, or, half of these guys over here. Alex emails me about a lot of shows. Like, if he isn't just like, hey, dude, what's up? How are you? And like continuing the story. Or the people who like, hi, my name is Alex Koska. Just like, dude, Alex, I've known you for 12 years. You can say hello, how are you? You don't have to introduce your band anymore, even if you change your band name a lot. We're in kind of a cool space. The Flint local. Obviously, I think most of you guys that are here probably understand kind of the history of how long this has been going on, and it's kind of a haven of DIY. And I'm one of the people who has like done things DIY, but also kind of legitimized it. And I think that DIY has become, we talk about this safe space stuff all the time, and it's becoming more and more whatever. What it's created is, unfortunately, in DIY is a safe space to just be like a super part-time artist that wants all the perks of being a full-time artist. And that's what you're talking about, going to Nashville, going to LA, going to wherever, and just seeing these people do music 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week. There are little pockets of it here and there in Michigan. but it can be created right here amongst you guys. You should be writing songs together. You should be figuring out, when you were talking about all the different things that can go wrong, you know, like to work on stage. Like, guitar tones are so bad these days, guys. Like, fucking learn how to use the shit. Like, this guy fucking knows. I'm looking at you because I know that you're the only two in this room that probably know what guitar tone, a good guitar tone is. No, that's not true. But, like, there's so many bands that get on this stage, and it's like no one's telling them, like, God, that sounds like ass. It's like those are cool songs, but, like, they'd be so much cooler if you'd pay attention to what frickin' Jay Mascis is doing with all 14 of those guitar cabs, or you know, like take some notes and
take some notes.
And like, I'm leading to, I'm always worried about these things because I never know what the questions that are going to be thrown at you. And I told my wife today, I said, I hope Ashley throws me some beach balls that are easily hittable. And this is,
what's your favorite color?
Right. This is a perfect beach ball to lead into one of the things that I've been saying for a very long time, and it's something that I share with artists that, like, tell me, you know, ask for favors. Like, music is a competition, guys. It 100% is. And every DIY Facebook group will tell you that that's wrong and it's blah, blah, blah. The reality is, if you write a song and you put it on the internet, or you book a show, and you're in competition with every other thing that person could be doing at that moment, that could be listening to your song or attending your show. And it doesn't have to be like a battle of the bands style competition. I'm not talking like votes and bullshit. I'm talking like it's your show versus staying home and watching Netflix. It's your show versus sexual intercourse. It's your show versus pizza. It's your show versus literally everything in the history of the world. So if you don't treat it like that, and if you don't bring your A game all the way across the board, people are going to stay home and have sexual intercourse or eat pizza or do both at the same time. And
don't knock it till you tried it.
I've never tried. I don't know. I'm sure it's great, though. But, like,
Start a new thing right now.
it literally is a competition, so you have to go into that with that mindset. And the other thing we talked about, and I'm using all of my analogies in one little spiel here, but
bring it.
Identify what it is that you want to be.
Yeah.
If you want to be a bar rocker on the weekends, looking at you guys over there. No, I'm just kidding. Bar rockers know their tone. They know their tone, man. You go to those shows and you're like, I don't care about what they're doing, but they're doing it well, you know? I started, my DIY was doing DIY bar gigs in the worst bars in the world, and, like, that's how I got started, was, like, booking cover bands and all that stuff when I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But those guys had tone and they had all that. If that's what you want to do, there is nothing wrong with that, and there's an economy for it. So find the people that want to do that stuff, that want to engage in that stuff, and just hang out with those people and create your own little community and do it to the best of your ability. And if you want to be the next Killers, there's a different set of guidelines for being the next Killers. Or if you want to ride around with your punk emo band in a van and just do 200 dates a year, there's a different set of guidelines for that. But don't come to MoPop Festival and be the cover band and think that they're going to book you for one of those 3 or 4 prime local opening slots. Just, like, identify who you are and figure out what the steps are, and then do the steps and do them to the best of your ability, because there's a million other bands and artists doing the exact same thing. And if you don't do one of those steps right, you lose, they win. And it sounds like super but it's the reality. I think we're all a little soft some days when it's like in certain spaces where, well, I should just go support my friends. It's like, my friend's band sucks, and I've supported them 4 times. Like, they need to get better now to earn more of my support, you know? Like,
when I took Natalie to Nashville, it was very soon after I started working with her. But I wanted her to begin sitting in front of industry influencers, and it was a safe environment. This guy was a friend and a colleague of mine, but he was a real guy. He reports directly to the president of CSAC. He just signed Adele for 5 years or whatever. So it was a real for real meeting. The first question he asked her was, what was the question? What do you want?
yes.
What do you want to be? What do you want to do? And that's the golden question at Soul Foundry. What do you want to do? You have to have an answer. And it's painful how many people don't have an answer for that. And another thing I want to expand on that Nate said about you're in competition. You're not in competition with other bands. I want to double down on what he said. You're in competition for people's attention. Gary Vaynerchuk, one of my favorite entrepreneurial coaches, look him up if you don't know who he is. He says, I'm not competing with Tim Ferriss. I'm not competing with John Maxwell. I'm not competing. My book isn't competing with their book. I'm competing with your desire to sleep. I'm competing for the 24 hours a day that you're given to spend on something. I want you to spend it on me. Yeah. So we went to, Soul Foundry artists went to a networking event a couple weeks ago in Detroit, and on the car ride home, we talked about fear. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And my fear, I'm afraid of one person. I'm afraid of the one person that misses out on what I have to offer because I took a day off, because I didn't do that one distribution mechanism. I believe that what I have to offer is worth a damn. I believe that what my artists have to offer is necessary to how this planet functions. That's how deep it goes. And if you don't think that what you have to offer is uniquely valuable, there's the fucking door. Because you're in the wrong business. You have to fight for this. You have to fight for your worth. You have to fight for the quality of your product. And that means that it's not arrogant for you to fight for the attention of your listeners. So my fear is the one person that misses out because we didn't do enough. That's why I fucking love working 15-hour days as far as the eye can see. I took a half a day off last week, and I ended up talking about business. It was really fucked up.
Yeah,
Jamie,
we don't take days off, dude. We don't.
Jamie, so to circle back to the question, what about an artist captivates you? What gets your attention?
So this is a beach ball thing, okay? So my fear is speaking in front of audiences, but I continually to push myself out of my comfort zone because I believe in what I'm doing and what I have to offer. I do not like hearing the same music over and over and over again. And this might be wrong to say, I'm just saying. I like it when bands send me something that is fresh and unique in some kind of way. You don't sound exactly like this artist or exactly like that artist. Like, either your voice has to be different, your delivery has to be different, the instrumentation behind you has to be, something has to catch. And as soon as it catches my ear, I'm like, they're gonna be something. And it seems like every time that I've had that catch, those bands explode in one way or another. Yeah. Everybody else, you serve a part and it's great, but you're not gonna get caught up into the next thing. So you have got to push yourselves out of your comfort zones and push yourselves into a uniquely sounding something. It can be pop or hip hop or rock or whatever, but you have to have something different to actually really catch my attention, and to want to give you those higher slots, or even, tell other producers or festival producers about you, or people that book shows. I get approached by different event producers and festival producers within the Detroit metro area all the time. Do you have a band that fits this genre, or that you think would be good for this show? And it's always those unique ones that I'll just flip right off the head. Here's their contact, here you go. And so that's what catches my attention. It's not only your professionalism. I do like the personal stuff about, hey, how you doing? Not just, why didn't you book
the
our
art
band?
itself.
It's just a confidence.
Yeah. It's almost like that thing that you were saying. When you talk to somebody in a personal way, it's like you could leave there getting booked for the show or not. You're still going to be a decent human being and somebody that I'm going to eventually want to work with down the road.
So I'm going to be selfish for a second, and I can because this is my event and I have a microphone. And this, I think, is a beneficial follow-up to this question. Natalie Lucassian still doesn't have a release out. And I began dialoguing with you, last July about Natalie. And she didn't have anything recorded yet. Now the EP's done, but it's still not out. Both of you have booked her multiple times Why?
Because she has a unique sound, and her personality is very likable and enjoyable, and she gets along with, I haven't seen her not get along with anybody. The crowd reaction to her is lovable and fun, and she's just a pleasure to work with, straight up.
So Nate, no recording, no website. Why did you book her?
All right, I'm sorry, Natalie. I've never listened to your music. I'm sorry. Ashley described you, and I like Ashley, and I thought it was a fit from what he described, but I honestly haven't listened to your music yet. And that makes me sad, because I'm going to go home tonight now and listen to it, because we've 2 nights in a row now made the personal connection. You came up to me today and said, "Hey, how are you?" And I looked at you and your newly curled hair, and it took me a second, and you were standing in the silhouette of the doorway, but I made the connection that you came up again and said hello to me after meeting me last night, which is really cool. I get way too many artists sent to me.
Sure.
And you know, we talk about building the team and everything. You have started to build a team, and you've built a team with somebody like Ashley, who I trust implicitly, and he just says, "This is what it sounds like," and I say, "Okay, I don't have to click play, or I'm not in a place where I can click play, or I'm clicking on my phone while I'm driving down 96. I don't do that. But I haven't listened to your music, and I booked you twice, and that speaks to what's right and wrong about this business. It's about relationships. It's absolutely about what you've done to like build your relationship with Ashley, and what Ashley has done to build his relationship with me. So now we have a direct relationship. But it's also what's wrong with this business, because I've booked 2 musicians on music events, or 1 musician twice on 2 different music events that I've never listened to. How screwed up is that? That's fucked. I'm sorry, everybody. Like,
it brings up a good point, though.
I feel like a total tool bag to like say that, but it's the reality of like, I had a slot to fill. You came in at the right moment, and it just like there was the synergy was there. Let's talk about synergy. You walked into a tech conference. Sorry. And it was just like, yeah, this makes sense. This is perfect. You're exactly who I need for that set. But now what's going to happen, and Alex can speak to this, Alex Koska back here, he sent me a song recently, and I've booked you multiple times over the years, and I've said no to you way more times than I booked you. But you sent me a tune the other day, and I listened to it, and it's freaking great. It sounds like a modern Goo Goo Dolls song, and it was like, and I told you that, and you were like, dude, awesome, thank you. And it's sad that you have to like get to a certain point to where I'll even press play, but that's the reality. It's that impressiveness. I get so many things sent to me, and it's like, if it doesn't meet like these at least 3 very minor standards, I usually just click delete, which is kind of makes me feel shitty, but I guess I'm kind of a shitty person.
You have to curate, just because your attention is valuable too, like the attention of their listeners. So Nate brings up a really good point about an advocate for an artist, or a artist team. So Natalie is in talks with the label, and she was just extended an offer by a label. I can't talk about it, but the president of the label said, "I cannot impress upon you, Ashley, enough how much it means that she has an advocate in you. She's driven, you're hungry and present. That's why we're having this conversation." So, yep, her music's great, her song's great. He's in love with her work ethic, he's in love with her songs, he's in love with her personality. But if I wasn't part of the picture advocating for her, it'd be a different conversation, or there wouldn't be a conversation
and
at
he's
all.
in love with Ashley.
I get around.
Just like I am.
See me after the show. So, one more question, and then we're going to open up to some Q&A with you all. What are you excited about right now? Hopefully this is the beach ball. In southern Michigan, there's a lot that I see to be excited about. I want to answer this question myself. I'm excited.
I hear somebody laughing. I'm going to throw this beach ball. Hold on, I want the beach ball back for a
It's
second.
mine.
That's my beach ball.
It's my ball. I'm taking it and going home. So I'm excited to see Detroit reposition itself as a musical authority in the nation. I see a lot of things in the southern half of Michigan
That guy's stoked.
connecting the dots to make that happen. I don't think it's a matter of whether it's going to happen. I think it's inevitable. And I think right now is ground floor. I think you're a part of it or you're not. So I'm trying to find out how I can help, how Soul Foundry and its artists can help, what role we play in that. And what role, honestly, endgame, that plays in reshaping the landscape of the music industry, because I think it fucking can. Have you heard what's coming out of Detroit? And are you familiar with Detroit's history? And soul and tenacity. So I'm excited about Detroit and where it's going to be in 3 to 5 years. What are you guys excited about?
He just threw 2 beach balls. Which one of us is going to catch it first? Go ahead.
I am definitely excited about Detroit and where this music scene is going and the talent that is coming out of, not Detroit, Southeast Michigan. And the talent that's coming out right now has, whether it's rock or Flint Eastwood, Greta Van Fleet, Stone Clover, I feel like there's so much unique music that is coming out of here right now, and it's such a strongly driven music community, and I see more people, like more bands communicating with each other, building communities around themselves, and really trying to dig themselves in deeper into the whole understanding of social media and like you said, building that family, that team around you, and becoming wiser and stronger all together. And like you said, I would like to just help. I love to work with artists that are very easy to work with, and that make me want to work with them and help them reach the next level. And whether that is in, local show production or festival production, or my contacts that I have outside of Detroit, putting the bug in other people's ears. I feel like the energy here is just on this snowball roller coaster that I'm excited to be a part of and to help in any way push it to go faster.
I'm excited about any rapper that names himself Lil Something and then is the top 10 Spotify the next day. I'm sorry, that came back to what you were talking about earlier. You were talking about artists that are, different and whatever, and it's like, I beg to differ. The top 10 Spotify singles are Lil Somebody mumbling about something. I'm really excited about... I've been booking shows now for 14 years, and I've been booking a stupid amount of shows each year, so I have a very wide set to look at any given point, so there's some very clear trends. Local music is in a really cool spot right now in a lot of different places. In Detroit, obviously, I've been really close with Assemble Sound and all of the things that are happening with Flint Eastwood and with Toondale Honor, and who's from here, and with Valley Hush, and just all these artists that are kind of collaborating and just going to work every day. There is no time clock because they never punch out. They're just always constantly working on something. Jax goes on a 6-week tour, and then the next day she's Instagramming in the studio. It's take a minute to get a coffee or something, Christ, before you go back to work. But it's not just Detroit. It's in Flint, there's a cool group of bands that's working together on stuff and shows and things like that, and it's hard to see sometimes. And in Grand Rapids is such an upcoming city, and there's so many great acts coming out of Grand Rapids right now. And then you see bands like Wolfpack and they're all unique, like you said, but on the level beyond what we see in magazines and things like that, like the Michigander show last night that did 400 people, there are shows again that are just 3 or 4 local acts that are doing 200, 300, 400 people, and it's just sheer hustle. It's hustle, and it's quality. And those things are being rewarded by people who are joining in and just helping in some fashion. And we're this weird company that has its roots in DIY, but also our roots are in the history of the Detroit music scene in the last 30, 40 years. When the Crowfoot Presents purchased Fusion Shows, the Crowfoot is owned by a newly 70-year-old man named Blair McGowan, and he was the guy who was part of the team that opened St. Andrews Hall as a concert venue back in 1978, 79, something like that. and brought it from where it was to where it is today, which is now owned by Live Nation and you know, just kind of funneled into the corporate world. But he owned and operated that space with a group of partners for 20-something years. He sold off to SFX, which became Clear Channel Entertainment, which became Live Nation, and now it's the corporate room in town. And it's still a beautiful room, and I have tons of great memories of going to shows in spaces like that. And then, you know, he opened the Crowfoot, and now we go into the Masonic Temple and all this stuff. But there's like the side over here that's all these corporate companies and the Live Nations and the AEGs and the Reacts and the Crowfoot side of like the bigger shows that are always like kind of like partnering and stabbing each other in the back at the same time. So I get some of that. You know, I got to be a part of a Killers show earlier this year, and that was like, what the fuck am I even doing here? Why did I just walked in the back door and nobody stopped me because I do enough stuff here to like have the status of being able to walk into a Killers show, which is really cool. But then on the other side, the stuff that really excites me is the stuff like last night and, you know, acts like Mover Shaker and acts like Greet Death and acts like Shortly and acts like Watching for Foxes in Grand Rapids and all these acts that are just hustling, putting out great songs, building their own little groups around them that just kind of flow with them, and they're like this, these little blobs that kind of like just suck more people in as they go. But it's super, super exciting. And there was a time, I think, kind of when the internet was new. God damn it, I'm old. I don't.
IRC for life.
Yeah, exactly.
3 people in the back are like, dude.
When I started booking shows, it was I found out about bands on mp3.com. It was like really early on, before there was social media and all that kind of thing. And then there was social media, and everyone had an opinion, and they could put it out there. And now everybody's wasting that on all their breath on that, on politics and on all of those things. So now it seems like music has become more of a community and a family again, and it's kind of coming back into spaces like this, and they're using the internet in ways to like activate this stuff, because damn near every one of you found out about this through a Facebook event probably, right? I would assume, or at least some social media, but hopefully there were some people that are like, hey, we're going to this thing today, you want to come? But it's really, really cool to see in spaces, there's just so many bands that are just are putting out good songs and selling tickets. And I don't mean like selling tickets. They're just drawing heads out to their shows, and it's all original stuff, and it's the way it was supposed. It's the way I dreamed it would be a really long time ago when I first started. And when I first started coming to local gigs, when I first started going to shows, it was at St. Andrews and Clutch Cargo's and places like that. Yeah. I didn't even know a place like this existed. And then like, here I started at like age 24 or 25. Somebody's like, hey, I'm going to the show at this place called the Flint Local. And I came up here and it was like, wait, what the fuck is this place? There's no beer. There's no, what's paying the bills here? And it's like, love is paying the bills. Heart is paying the bills. And it was like, I dove in so hard into like local music right from the first day I saw Kid Brother Collective and Edison Clio and Anathalo all together on one bill at the Flint Local, and my mind just exploded.
It's been over 30 years, and admission is still the same price it was back in the day. John Connor's been on the stage, Giodos has been on the stage, the Swellers.
Right. And like, it's happening again, and it's really, really cool. And the hope is that in this space, I haven't been to a show up here in a while. I'm kind of, you know, I have a kid now, and I have 400 of my own shows to worry about. So I don't know what the crowds are like in here. But the hope is that the things that I'm seeing in Detroit and Grand Rapids and to a certain degree in Lansing and even Ann Arbor and Kalamazoo, I hope that it either it starts happening here or it's going to start happening here very soon. And I hope it's because people realize that if they just have personal connections with one another and just expand that blob a little bit to like welcome you in and like, hey, guest on my song, sing a hook on this, come down to the studio and check out how I'm playing these drums. Like, yo, I figured out how to do this cool thing on my guitar that makes the tone better. Tone, right? Yeah. People just start hanging out and doing music full time when on top of the other full-time job they have, that it just radiates and creates.
Because you know it's a job, right?
Yeah, I mean,
if you're a musician,
sorta. It doesn't have to be.
You have a job. It's your job. And what he said, hustle and community. Detroit is really starting to activate on those things. So take notes. Flint, Detroit is your mentor. I encourage you to have an individual mentor, but as a community, Detroit's your mentor. Be there, take notes, be present.
They're
Jamie,
your mentor
sorry.
that they do things good and bad. Take notes of the bad things that happen in those places too,
sure, for sure.
and don't carry those on. But yeah, absolutely. There's momentum. And Nashville's your mentor, and LA is your mentor, but Detroit's the one you can drive to in an hour and a half. So.
Jamie, what are you excited about? What are you excited about?
I already told you.
Oh, you did? Oh.
I just talked for so long.
Oh, right on. I was just lost in the haze of
I popped the
I'm
beach
excited
ball.
about warm
Nate's
weather
dreamy
coming
voice.
very soon. Yes.
Festival season's coming.
Yes, I'm so excited to work 20-hour days. I love
Maybe
it.
maybe what specifically in your
per
world
day.
do you do? Like what festivals are you? She
What-
does Arts, Beats, and Eats, which is awesome. And
So-
what else do you do?
Arts, Beats, and Eats, River Days, Winter Blast, production assistant on MoPop. I just started with FunFest, so it's the Rockin' on the Riverfront, Stars and Stripes, Uncle Sam Jam.
Damn.
I think there's some other ones in there too.
So it's about to get real busy.
She's
for
busy.
you.
It's okay.
Okay, like, Jamie's resume is impressive, but you didn't hear half of it. She retired as a DJ by playing in Paris in front of 30,000 people. She's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna go book some shows in Detroit.
It was a b-boy competition, so it was extra fun.
So I want to open up the floor to questions from you guys. What do you want to ask Nate and Jamie? Go ahead and raise your hand. Any advice on social media presence?
Dude, so much advice.
How much time do you have?
I posted something on my personal Facebook the other day where I kind of ranted about how one of the artists that I work very closely with posted about their album a couple times and then said, like, yeah, I think my friends are sick of hearing about that, so I'm not going to post as much about it anymore. And I went, wait a minute, dude, like, people chose to follow your page to know what you're doing. And, like, records are timeless, right? Like, on the way here today, I was listening to something, I don't even remember what it was, but, like, it's just, I still listen to records that are 30, 40 years, you know, like I've had since I was a kid. And I would love to hear more about that record. If they're not, if your record and your whole thing is so narrow that you only can post about it a couple times and then you've like exhausted everything there is to say about that record, then like Ashley said, like there's the door, like try harder. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to consistently provide content. And it can't just be like the same post over and over, you know, buy our record, but like tell a story about what the song is about. Engage us in some fashion. And I personally, and it's just me personally, like, especially on Twitter, like artists use Twitter as like their personal and their band or their artist side at the same time. So they're just constantly like, I just ate a sandwich. It's like, there are certain places where that makes sense to like be just social and like we all use our social media for the dumbest ass, most like self-aggrandizing ways. You know, I'm the worst, but I'm not an artist, so thankfully that's fantastic. Except for spreadsheets where I'm absolutely an artist. But tell us a story. Don't kill us with a bunch of retweets and garbage that like makes you pumps up your ego and all that kind of stuff. Just like be an artist in everything that you do and everything that you present, and just be impressive. And if you can do that on Instagram and draw somebody's attention, and it can be something as like gimmicky as like a thing that flashes when you scroll by, and then you see like a story and you're like, okay, you stopped me, you got me, and now I'm gonna click see more and see what you just wrote. And I might find out that like whatever you just wrote about on your record or whatever show you're playing for whatever cause or charity you're involved in or whatever might be the reason why I become your fan. I might see it retweeted from one of my friends. I might see it shared from somebody, and just know that everything that you put out there, we talked about the competition earlier, you're in competition with everybody. Make me click your shit, but also once I click it, don't let me down.
Jamie, anything you want to add?
So personally, I like content that makes me like takes you to a personal level with me. So like I want to know about why you wrote that song, the meaning behind the song. I want to see your guys' band banter back and forth in rehearsal or whatever. I want to get to know you guys as people without getting to know you as people, you know? So I like make me want to be your friend as well as your fan. And then also you do have to grab me within the first couple seconds or else I'm done. Off to the next one.
My 2 cents, the destination is connection, and the vehicle is authenticity. You have to be yourself. You just have to be yourself, properly voiced for the platform. Twitter is where you're funny. Instagram is where you're cute. Facebook's where you're interesting. In that, do your own thing. And cross-link the fuck out of everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys talk a lot about it being business, but everything you kind of touched on there is very much more towards the creative end. When you go to that lower level, less like intuitive, guttural, do you look at like KPIs for anything? Like you might like this grabs me, but now what do I react to at like this certain follower level? Do you look at engagement on social media posts? You know what I mean? Or how much of it just comes down to, man, I really am involved in this creative content.
So
So are you saying analytics versus song quality and yeah?
once something grabs you,
Right. But are you asking how we balance them or what we? Yeah.
once your instinct draws you towards something, how does that transmute into measurables?
Well, and what they're seeing, like measurables are like out there, right? You're looking at YouTube, you can see engagement on videos, you can see it on posts publicly. Do you guys, or I should say, how do you guys weigh that in your decision making when you're doing it?
Personally, I don't weigh it in. If your music grabs me and your personality has me, then I'm going forward with it. I have the luxury though of booking local acts for local shows at local festivals and stuff. So, like, it doesn't. If somebody approaches me from Los Angeles and is like, "We'd really like to play Arts, Beats, and Eats," I'm like, "Okay, like, what is your draw in this market? Why should you replace one of my local acts?" And none of them have been able to do it so far. So.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to what do you want, that question earlier. Most of everything is going to come back to that question, but like if you're trying to be the bar band playing the 4-hour set at the bar that's already full, then I'm just going to listen to your music. If I've got a hard ticket room and a spot where I have to like sell tickets and get people in the room, I'm going to look at those numbers. And there are industry ways of looking at like touring acts and how many tickets they're selling in different markets and things like that. On the local level, it's a little different, but you know, I am going to take a quick scroll through your email, look at the main points that you're pointing out. You should be the one that puts forward the most impressive things, and if you don't do that, then write better emails. Or if you're connected to someone who, in Natalie's case, you know, Ashley says, "Hey, Natalie should open this show," and I said, "All right, cool, done." When it comes down to like this act versus this act, sometimes I have the liberty of being like, I just like these songs. I think this is awesome. I'm going to book it. And sometimes I'll take a financial hit in order to do that, to get behind something that I really think is impressive. But it is a business, and there are bills to pay, so absolutely. I don't dig real deep into like social analytics and stuff like that. If you spend a lot of time trying to like finesse that stuff, all of it should come naturally, right? If you're really kicking ass on the creative side, I would hope that the momentum is coming with it. And it's not going to be something that I can measure on a website as much as like 4 people have told me that this band freaking rules and I should work with them. And if somebody, like I've talked to enough people in the grapevine that if 4 people aren't telling me that, it's possible that luck has just been not on our side and we may be meant to like do stuff together. But put out what's most impressive about you, but build that table showing that you're paying attention to all the different legs of the table that we talked about earlier.
So when I brought Natalie to Nate, I had an artist I believed in. There was the intangible there, and I didn't just sweet talk him on that though. Yeah, I thought we had a fit for one of his bills, but I know his love language is draw because it's a business, right? So we fucking worked the hell out of that show. We sold through all the paper tickets he got, and we sold a bunch of online sales.
Yeah.
And that was her first Fusion show, and I knew that I had to actually show him numbers as well as this artist that just captured my heart, and hopefully it would capture his heart too. But we still have to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
The next day, and
they just delivered.
You got to deliver, and you got to show something that's growing too. Like he said, you got to be paying attention to what's going, building mechanisms that report to you, so that you can translate that to the people that you want to partner with. I was talking with my friend who's president of this label, and he said, look, if you're an unproven artist and you have a team that's working you go out, you do press, you do radio, you gather measurables, you learn about yourself, you come back to me and say, look, here's what we're learning. We're still soft on social. We're still soft on moving units, but we have gravity in this market, this market, and this market in this way. We want to go back out. You have my attention because you have a team working you who's learning, adjusting, and growing.
And know that there are places for acts that do well with both, right? So Arts Beats and Eats has to have draw, but also is like an institution that people are just going to go walk around and eat. So she's got a lot more leeway in certain cases to just be like, this rules, and we want to support it, so we're going to support it. Fusion Shows is known as being a little bit more of, like I said, the hard ticket. Like, we rent a club, we put $1,500 or $5,000, or in the case of the festival I'm launching next week, $100,000 of our money out there that maybe we don't even have, and that has to return for us, right? But obviously, we also are in cool situations where we book shows where there's just going to be people there, and I get to hook up whoever I think is the coolest band or coolest artist or whatever without thinking of any of the numbers. So identify who those people are that can get you what's called a soft ticket gig. Soft ticket is all of those shows that there's no tickets. It's just people show up or they pay $5 to get inside the city of Royal Oak and walk around and eat $12 steak on a stick, and we do it every summer, you know? And you get to be on the same bill as 311 played last year. Mm-hmm. You get to come original with 311.
But yeah, Jamie, what do you do for a living? I take over cities.
Right.
Next question. Yes.
So my name is Greg.
Hey, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
I predominantly work with the hip hop community, and recently I've been told by my mentor, Tim Roberts, that hip hop is the one industry that does not need a label to technically blow or to get further along down the line. But one of the hardest things I have is trying to push that boundary of introducing a new form of hip hop or alternative music to them. And the moment I even include the words hip hop or the demographic I'm from, it's like a brick wall hits. And the only other way I found that was useful is through connections. But how can I build that connection if I don't get to meet them in person and have to see them across country?
I want to contextualize that a little bit. Number one, Greg is one of my new favorite people. He set up this entire room. He set up the microphones, he set up the chairs. So, Greg, thank you so much for taking care of us today.
Greg. Which is the answer to your question. If you just get involved with somewhere that can be an influencer, you can break down those boundaries. But do you want to contextualize a little more before I ask him a question?
An up-and-coming influencer in the hip-hop community in Flint, and he went to that aforementioned networking event in Detroit, and he got to talk with Tim Roberts, who's a radio influencer in Detroit. And he went to Tim with this question saying, look, I represent hip-hop acts. There's this stigma that we're going to come into a venue and just wreck the joint, right? So how do I have a productive business conversation in the presence of this elephant in the room, this stigma of hip-hop artists? And rather than solve that problem, what Tim said is, I'm going to turn your problem into an asset. Do you realize that hip-hop is a genre that doesn't need a label to break? Look at Brockhampton. They're fucking blowing up and they're indie. So what Greg is saying, though, is like, how do I dissolve the stigma around artists that I represent, aside from just trying to convince people that we're worth them? Is that fair, Greg?
And who's putting up the wall? Like, what are you trying to? Where are you trying to get to that you cannot get to? Specifically, just give me an example, because there's lots of places, right?
I tell somebody about trying to
Yeah.
And the moment I said I do hip hop, the first rebuttal was, I didn't even state you put us on the show. It was like, what do I need to do to make sure that I have all the proper information for you?
Yeah.
Well, first off, let me state by saying, we don't put you on apps. We don't hook you up. We don't. They gave us the very strict stereotypes that come along with hip hop, or people within that demographic that ask for not like they just assume that they can get the opportunity instead of trying to work towards it.
Yeah.
Like they just assume that we're looking for a handout versus like, hey, I'm trying to
Right.
show you that I'm putting the work towards this and not just say, can you hook me up?
I think Jamie's got a round chambered for this one.
No, because I have to say that JWA, and I love JWA, I'm not talking shit about them. They have this stigma. They don't allow hip hop or rap or hardcore metal at their shows. And I come from the hip hop world, born and bred in it. And I have tried my hardest to knock down their barriers. And there have been a few crossover acts, bands with hip hop artists, lyricists with singers as well, that we have booked at our events. I would say, like you had alluded to earlier, is getting. You asked a question, like, if you can't go and meet them face to face, how do you present it in an email or social media or something like that? Get with the influencers of the bands that you think you would do a good show with in that certain market, and start a dialogue with them. Don't just like throw stuff at them like, hey, this is my band, this is what I'm trying to produce. Like, start a dialogue with them. Be personable, ask them about the market, ask them how they're doing or whatever, and start it there, and try to have other influencers help you break down those barriers with those people that are booking the shows or the festivals.
So like the one tactic that I've been trying to do is incorporate different genres along with hip hop, showing that you can still have the demographics to still produce a well put show. How do you feel about that?
I think diversification is helpful, but at what point are you contriving that and are in danger of betraying your brand?
Yeah. So I can answer that on a million levels. I've done a lot of shows in a lot of places, places like the Crowfoot that we do all kinds of hip hop and just love doing hip hop shows. And, when you do a hip hop show, we'll have 10 security guys instead of 6, or 10 instead of 8, depending on what it is. Now, if you've pitched to me like, look, we're a different kind of hip hop, we listen. We absolutely are interested in listening and things like that. There are difficulties with an all ages space like this. Like, if it's a hip hop show and it goes to like what I'm used to at a hip hop show at the L Club or Marble Bar or wherever at 4 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's got their joints out, like that can't happen here. That can't happen at Bloodfest, the thing that I book in Heartland, where it's in a school building, and if one person sparks up a joint, the whole fucking festival ceases to exist forever. So unfortunately, people are driven to put those stigmas in place, but we also put those same stigmas in place for like death metal bands and mosh pits. We do that for like classic rock cover bands, because what do we need old guy 70-year-old Led Zeppelin covers? There's a place for that, but it's not at Bloodfest, right? There are absolutely places for every kind of music, and I think it gets touchy when you start talking about hip hop, because hip hop is associated with race for a lot of people. And I have an arena that we can go into. We've had a deal for a long time. We were trying to put together a run of Chance the Rapper dates a couple years ago, and it was right when he like exploded and became the hottest name in hip hop, so we would have never had a chance anyway. But like, the owner of the arena was like, there's a strict no hip hop policy. And I'm like, do you know who Chance the Rapper is? Do you know what he's like?
Do you hate money?
Not even do you hate money, but like, do you hate positivity? Do you hate community engagement? Do you hate all of the things that dude stands for? And it's exactly what it sounds like you stand for, where it's like, that's bullshit to me, but they own that space, and I guess they can make that call. You're talking to the wrong people to a certain degree. And I do think, unfortunately, in the hip-hop world, your choices are more limited than they are in certain places. But so, like EDM, same thing, How many ambulance runs do I want to have at a show for people ODing in the bathroom on fucking whatever else they're mixing up? Country shows, how many dudes do I want to drag out of there that hit their wife? Like, excuse me, I'm being really crude, but like those are all the different things that we run into at these shows. Find the people that are the influencers, the ones that do have that. And it's going to take a little bit more work probably for certain genres than it is for others. And I'm here to tell you that like 31-year-old me was really shitty at not knowing what my privilege was and knowing the things that I know now at 38. I think I probably was not on, maybe not purposefully, but very naively part of the problem. And I would just draw a line and say, okay, these are the things that I want to do, and everything that's outside of that, whatever it is, you know, I don't want to do that. And I want to have those conversations and say, look, I don't do a lot of hip-hop booking. I'll maybe do 5 or 6 or 10 shows a year out of my 400. But I know the people that do. So let me introduce you to Justin. Let me introduce you to the folks at the L Club. Let me introduce you to the folks at Pyramid Scheme who do really cool hip-hop nights in Grand Rapids. But it also is on you to share your vision and your story and be that person that shows up. And this can be taken to anybody in this room. It doesn't just have to be hip-hop or any genre. If you show up and you're the ones that set up the microphones and the chairs and you lend a hand, you've earned that right. And if you, after doing that, somebody doesn't allow you to speak and be a part of what they're doing, then that person sucks and you need to walk away from that person.
I want to expand on that. Be undeniable. Be undeniable. The question that you ask has an inherent desperation in it. It has an inherent need. I need something from you to legitimize myself. You legitimize you. Work your fucking brand. Work it to the point that it is undeniable. And I want to use an analogy that I used yesterday. You're growing a garden, right? And you have really, really fertile soil that you're cultivating, and that's going to bring up weeds. It's going to bring up flowers. Don't worry about weeding the garden. Worry about making that soil as fertile as possible and tend the flowers. Point them toward the sun. Make sure they have enough water. You cultivate the things that you want to grow.
Metaphor guy over here is freaking
You
out.
emphasize your fucking brand.
Dude.
You will bloom. Don't worry about the fucking weeds. Become undeniable.
The venue owner will worry about the weed. Oh, we're not talking about weed. We're talking about weeds. Okay, cool.
It's
But-
a different story, you know what I'm saying?
No,
Next question. Dylan.
So, first of all, let me say that weed analogy is the most classic Ashley thing I've ever heard.
I was doing a fucking podcast interview, and Natalie watched it. She's like, oh my God, 3 minutes in, and you're already talking about the fucking river analogy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My situation, so I'm solo, and I find sometimes that it's hard to expand out of, so I'm based out of this area too, I find that it's hard to expand out of this area because I want to be on shows with bands, and I know that what I do is interesting and powerful enough to be on bills with bands, but people want to put me on as like a 15-minute acoustic set starter, like that's what they assume.
In between sets while the sound guy's plugging things in behind you. Yeah, that's
And
bullshit.
This year, just this past February, I was really fortunate. Thanks to you for you putting me on the Chris Barron show at the Pike Room. That was like the first time I played the Pike Room, first time getting to Pontiac. But I'm just kind of struggling with expanding into different parts of Michigan because obviously I don't have a following in Grand Rapids yet or something. I haven't hit that market. But like, how do I expand into that area when I haven't played it?
All right, so you want to go to Grand Rapids, right? Let's just use that as a scenario. How many times have you been to Grand Rapids and gone to shows in like smaller spaces that you want to play?
Like 2 to 3 times.
Okay, so you've been there. Did you get through to figure out who the people are that are booking those spaces? Or did you? No, go ahead. I mean,
Yeah, I've had like a couple of times where friends of mine that are in the DIY area of Grand Rapids or related to Grand Rapids, Atlanta,
yeah.
or anything, be like, yeah, I know some people, and then like that seems to fall through. Like I want that power in my own hands.
Yeah.
To do that, but
I think Alex, I keep pointing at Alex because I think of anybody in the room, like I've got the most history with Alex. Alex kind of goes through some of the same stuff. Sometimes he's solo, sometimes he's got a band when he can like afford it, or like when he can find people to play with him. You're in a very similar situation, I think, where like maybe is your end goal down the road when you see yourself at the biggest level that you're ever going to be in? Is it still just you on stage, or is there a band? Is there a
My biggest influences are solos that don't perform like solos, like St. Vincent.
Okay.
So like that would be my goal.
I've never seen St. Vincent. Does St. Vincent have a band on stage, or is it literally just Annie running around?
It's different tour to tour. Honestly, this most
Right,
recent tour was
right.
pretty much just running tracks. You take up a lot of sonic real estate. You have the presence of a band. So your situation is unique. I think you start that in internal organization with your elevator pitch, and that comes from your identity. You know who you are. You have to communicate who you are,
Yeah.
and get people interested enough to press play.
So
that they're
in the
introduced to your
case of
brand.
when I booked Dylan, he told me that the artist that he was going to open for is one of his biggest influences, which was automatically like, okay, ding, 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 no one's going to work harder for this show than Dylan is, even if Dylan is 40 miles up the road from Pontiac and Flint. Like, I'm really not finding the perfect Chris Farron opener in Pontiac, so Dylan was, the right fit. But you can't say that about every show. You can't say that about like the general booking pitch. Like, hey, can you just work me into your calendar? You're gonna have to work your angle. And like, if you're not resonating with someone, if someone's not interested, it's a qualitative thing. People aren't interested. There's somebody out there that is, and unfortunately, sometimes that just leads to difficulty in booking gigs. It leads to a lot of no's. But I think that persistence, I think that showing up and being a part of the production side of things, being an advocate, being an ally for everybody in the area, and being somebody who's noticeable, supportive, that can break through some of that stuff. And then when you get that microphone, you've got that half hour to like blow everybody's mind. But there's also the natural part of it. Like if people that are booking that space aren't interested in what you're doing specifically, it just doesn't fit that niche of whatever it is they're trying to do in that house space. And I think that in DIY, unfortunately, that kind of happens where it's like, this is the narrow window that we book. Whereas a place like the Pike Room, you might have a corporate banquet one night and then a metal show the next night and then a hip hop show the next night and whatever. But those places also, the economics are hard. If you don't get 100 people in the room, it's not worth being open for certain places. So I don't have the perfect answer. I think just diving in more, getting involved as much as you can, saying, these are my hands, what can I do? If you're not going to book me, let me help you. Let me do something. Especially in spaces where you get started, houses, little DIY spaces like the Upper Room in Grand Rapids, and some of the house show venues in Lansing and things like that. But know that those are also super cliquey and they're hard to get into sometimes. And it kind of defeats the whole goddamn purpose of like the startup spaces when they're just as cliquey as like trying to book a show at the Palace or,
I have something I want to ask Jamie and Nate that actually is a bit of a leapfrog off that question. How are we on time, Todd? What time is it? Oh,
We got
perfect.
so much time.
Perfect. So
My wife's only texted me once so far, so
something
we're
that
good.
something that I
Easter
have been
eggs.
coaching people on is hanging out on purpose. I mean, you go to so many shows. I mean, it must be nice to have that much free time. Motherfucker, I'm on the clock. I went to 2 concerts last night, and I had the time of my life at both of them. I was working. I was networking. I was taking notes from the bands. Then I was hanging out with the bands and getting myself and my artist on their radar. Nate would not have given me a shout out on his post last night if I wasn't at his show. That meant a lot to him. So hanging out on purpose puts you in front of people in the scene, puts you in front of influencers who are putting on those shows, and lets them know you care about what they're doing. If you want to be interesting, be interested. So ask questions about how you can add value to what influencers are doing. If there's somebody who has something you want, give to them first.
Yeah.
Don't think you don't have something to offer. Give your time. Go to their shows. Buy a ticket. Care about what they're caring about. And then get to know them and be like, dude, how can I help what you're doing? And the fucking key, don't get transactional within yourself.
Yeah.
Don't think, well, if I give them something,
It's not
they'll
a
give me
one-to-one.
something.
Yeah.
No. Just add value to your fucking community. Cultivate the soil, and shit will grow.
That's what I was gonna say too, is building your own community in different communities. So if you go out to Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo or whatever, and there are places you wanna play, what local artists are playing those places already? Go to their shows, network with them, become friends with them. And if they ever come out here to do a show, offer them a place to stay or what have you.
Yep.
Just build your community in other communities and then link it all together.
There's a lot of merit to what you said about the one-to-one, the transactional, like I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Like you might have to scratch a back like 7 times to get one back your way. But it's that's part of the fun to me. Like if the only goal is to play shows and to get big and whatever, like you're doing it the wrong way. Like Ashley came out last night because Ashley wanted to come out last night. He didn't ask for a guest list spot for me. He just was there, and it was like, hey, dude, what are you doing here? And it was like, what do you mean, what am I doing here? I'm here at a show. This is what I do. This is how I function. This is me breathing.
I'm part of the community.
This is literally me breathing, and you guys do that. I mean, you guys go and support each other's shows. You throw shows, all that kind of thing. Go to Grand Rapids, find the key bands, and just tell them, hey, I came out to support, and I want to have you on a show at the Flint Local. I'm sure Sarah would help you build I'm sure you've done that, like show trades and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't have to be always so transactional. But again, I also want to go back to like the table leg thing. You could do that 1,000,000 times, but if you're not doing the other things too that look impressive, your emails aren't impressive, your songs aren't impressive, whatever, like it all has to come up together, and it's all part of it. So there's like to identify the answer to one problem is often a very, very wide answer that involves just like stepping your game up entirely all the way across the board. And you know what, the sad thing about art is that sometimes you can do all those things and it still just doesn't resonate with people, or it doesn't, you can build a restaurant and I could go in and be like, dude, Taco Bell's tacos are way better than this. And it's just the reality. Like sometimes it doesn't resonate in the area that you hope that it would, and you never find the people that you do. But you gave it a good run. You got involved, and I've worked with so many acts that have like gone for it and didn't get where it is that they wanted to go, but they had such fun along the ride that they can like set back and be like, I did this, and whatever. I'm a career musician who spent 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week just thinking about music, planning about music, supporting music, doing music, making music. And that was enough for me. Like, okay, I'm not Brandon Flowers or Dave Grohl or friggin'.
But there
I was
are
going
those
to say
times.
Tupac, but don't be Tupac because that didn't end well.
But there are those times that, like, as long as you're genuine and authentic and you're doing it for the purpose of creating music, there are some artists that don't get noticed or picked up for 20 or 30 years, but they're doing it because they love it and it's part of them. It's a job, but it's who they are and it's what they want to do. So just if you never give up on yourself, then who knows? The possibilities are endless.
Right. I mean, how long was Charles Bradley doing what Charles Bradley did, and how long did Chris Stapleton like?
You're about to make me cry, dude.
Yeah, but like, how long did all those people just kind of toil in anonymity, and then all of a sudden their moment just happened, and it was because they continued to think about the whole thing and continued to create, continued to collaborate, continued to support. And I don't know those people personally. Maybe they're assholes. I don't know. But they did all the things right for so many years, and it just never happened, and then all of a sudden it did.
Overnight successes take 10 years.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah. Right.
More questions? Yes. I can't see anything. Hi, Alexander.
Right.
Where's the flower growing? So Alexander was saying that he's more popular in Japan than he is in the States, and the consideration of market. There's a certain patch of soil over here with more nitrogen in it, and this type of flower likes to grow there. Follow it.
Is
That happens a lot, actually.
I
with
can't
artists.
see you at all. Is that Greater Alexander? So Alexander drove all the way from Detroit to be here, which is pretty cool. It's kind of the opposite of what we're
It's
talking
good to
about.
finally meet you. I want to shake your hand afterwards.
Yeah. He's at every show he needs to be at, and we've been connected for many years. He was on my street team when I worked at Live Nation. And in all that time, I think I booked you like 2 or 3 times. And that, that doesn't mean that like I don't want to book you, but your thing and what you do exists in so many different spaces that just aren't traditional like fusion shows, hard ticket spaces. He did one of the coolest events that any musician's ever done, and any local musician that I've been around has ever done, and I didn't get to attend, but he threw his album release show in a planetarium, like, like how cool would that be? And networking with somebody like me didn't help him get to the planetarium, but his general like going out there and networking with everybody that he networks with all the time in that soil, how did that idea, can I ask you how that idea even came to be? You just thought, I want to do, so I walk into places everywhere I go, and it's like kind of natural to what I do, but I walk into like Walmart, and I'm like, I could put a stage over there, and the soundboard could be right, like literally everywhere I'm at is a concert venue, so you think the same way, you just like breathe music, and you walk into a planetarium, you're like, oh my God, what if I did that? And you did it, and it was amazing, and it sounded like it paid off, and it was a good crowd and everything. Like, that guy's your example, living example right there. And like, the fact that you haven't maybe heard of his music yet doesn't mean that you're not going to, because he's doing all the things right.
I have a secret to tell you.
Uh-oh.
Want to hear a secret? There's no right or wrong way to do this.
There's lots of wrong ways to do it. That's bullshit. Actually, most of the ways to do this are wrong. Almost all of them.
There is imagination.
Yeah.
And there is relationship. And there is integrity. But method? Man, think bigger.
Yeah.
Think more powerfully.
And that goes back to what you were saying about like having a hard time breaking through with the influencers or the people that control spaces that you've reached. It's like, well, fuck all of that shit. Like, go do a show in a planetarium. That'd be sick, right? And
So-
like that guy, now you know him, and he can tell you how to do it. And it's like, dude, like a cool multi-genre like hip hop show in a planetarium sounds awesome. And I bet, okay, and to take it a step further, I guarantee you that everyone that's not like a community, like a city that owns a planetarium, probably smokes weed, so that problem goes away. Because if somebody publicly, if that's what they're worried about, the planetarium would be a great place for a hip hop show that just, I'm sorry, but you see what I'm saying? Like,
So, I don't mean to hang Natalie out to dry, but she's really fantastic to work with. She has journal entries of these worlds that her songs exist in. They're highly autobiographical, they're very authentic, but she creates these characters that she embodies in these songs, and they exist in very, very tangible worlds. And she says, you know what? This is something I've been coaching. I don't want a gig for my release party. I want an experience. So I encourage people to stop thinking gig and start thinking event, which means that you consider the engagement of the audience member from the time they first see your fucking promotional materials to the time they leave that show and are followed up with by your team, right? And you need to leave them breathless with what you offer them. So Natalie's like, man, I want a completely interactive experience. I want a team of people dressed up in costume as characters from my fucking songs. And my theme is 12:26, like the time of night when you're at a party and you want people to fucking get out of your house. When you feel alone while you're surrounded by people. And we're like, okay, at 12:26, the night of the release, we're going to have set up dozens of places all across Metro Detroit with a copy of the EP in advance, and they press play in their venue, their bar, their whatever. So her EP plays all across Detroit remotely at tons of locations. They all video it, throw it up on their fucking social, hashtag it. Now she's taken over the city.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. Be creative. This is art, right?
And I think that when you look at someone like myself or Jamie or Ashley, I think sometimes the pressure is on you guys to kind of fall in line with the standard. Like, I can sell 30 tickets and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, I want for one of you guys to come to me and be like, help me do a planetarium show. Like, oh, please, yes, God, I would love nothing more than to not put your show at Max Bar and do it at a planetarium. We did a show with Flint Eastwood at the Fisher Building in Detroit.
Tell us about that. Was it like 1,500?
Yeah,
17?
It was Flint Eastwood's release show at Toondale Honorin, and like the whole Assemble scene got involved, and Michigander opened, and I think we did like 1,200 and something paid, and there was another 200 or 300 comps, which is like, sounds like a silly thing to do, but sometimes
She had people in costume, right?
Yeah, she had 16 Jaxes. If you've ever seen Flint Eastwood, she used to, doesn't do it as much anymore, but she had that really iconic red hat and the black like spaghetti western costume, and we found 16 of those, and when you came in there was a red carpet down the center of the arcade at the Fisher Building with 16 fake Jaxes, and they were all just with their head down, and it was the most epic entrance that ever happened. And then the show was in this like historic building, and she made way less money than if she had just gone to the Crowfoot or the Majestic or St. Andrews and said, hey, we want to bring you 1,100 people that are all going to drink beer. But the experience is something that the people are still talking about to this day. And it's like, if you want to take your art and just go to that level, let's do it. I'm looking for a show right now for Toondale Honorin wants to release his new record in some sort of special alternative space kind of way. And we like get off on that stuff real hard. So I don't want to just plug you into a formula. And agents do that, and managers do that, and labels do that. They're like, we got to have a release show. We got to use the release show to make the most money possible so that we can fund blah 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 blah. It's like, no, dude, don't just let's make the experience. Let's build the buzz. Let's build the demand. Until you're making tons and tons and tons of money, you're just reinvesting the money you make anyway. So if you can do things on the cheap with your friends and make them impressive, do a show in a planetarium, do a show in the Fisher Building, do a show in your basement, do a show in a garden, do your show where, like, just knock down all the walls. That's the stuff I want to do. And am I going to take a $5,000 bath for you to do that? Probably not. But will I break even to do it? Yeah. If we can find a way to make it make sense to where you break even, I break even, and we did a really, really, really cool thing that we can like brag about for the rest of our lives. Like, yo, you remember when we went up on that rooftop and did that secret show? Or when like Rage Against the Machine used to just like run up on the steps of the Wall Street Stock Exchange and shut that shit down for a music video. Do that shit! Like, and I want to be the guy who like got the stage for you or whatever. Like, and I don't need any of the credit. You're the one that gets the credit. I'm just the one that's like there, like watching as shit goes ham, you know? That's what I want.
Next question.
I don't want to book you in the pipe.
If nobody asks the question, I'm going to start talking about death.
Yeah.
Chris. Honestly, the river analogy is applied to many different cases. You got to give me a problem to see if I can apply the river analogy. What?
What?
Oh no, he just wants to hear the river analogy that you were mentioning. You're like, oh my God, the river analogy again.
You can't just drop it. You have to be asked a question that, like, I could talk about a table anytime, dude. Like literally anywhere, I could talk about a table. I don't know.
So. I know you guys are just being jerks. So I want to talk about the river in terms of identity. If you stand in front of, for instance, the Colorado River, ever since rivers have had names, that's been the Colorado River. And to this day, it is the Colorado River and will likely remain the Colorado River. It is the Colorado River, but if you stand in front of it, it's different water all the time. just like you. You are always you. But because your thoughts are beholden to time and to growth, you are not the person you were yesterday, nor the person you will be tomorrow. And if you can embrace the uncertainty
Dylan, write that
of
shit down.
you don't know what water's coming toward you and you cannot recapture the water that's passed, then you can love yourself more fully. Because you are absolutely beholden to uncertainty. Life is uncertainty. Fear is worship of certainty. And artists, every single fucking artist I've ever worked with is scared shitless.
Is what?
Scared shitless.
Why?
It's different for everybody. Sometimes it's the dad issue coming up. Sometimes it's just base inadequacy. It's always voiced differently, but it is always the root of fear, which in turn is planted in the tepid soil of worth issues. And if you solve your worth issues, there's what's going to stop you? Nothing can stop you.
And don't wait for me or Jamie to solve those, because we're gonna shit on your life a lot.
So last
Right,
night,
right, Alex and Alexander. I will say no to you many times.
I'm at the show with Nate last night, and Nate's like, "Man, I'm not gonna pull any punches. I hope you're okay with that. I'm ready to go in there and bust some fucking skulls. I'm gonna ruin some lives." I was like, "Yes, let's wreck them." It's brutal out there, and if you don't know yourself, you're gonna get consumed. So the reason that I don't do production or recording or even consultation, the reason that I say I'm a developer is because I point people towards themselves. I help them become better versions of themselves. I help them stabilize their worth, because if I can do that, then everything else is cream cheese. When I get an artist behind a microphone, it ceases to be a microphone and becomes a mirror. They hear the voice saying, "Nah, you're not really good enough to do this." So there's tears on that rug upstairs. That's the work that I do. And nobody in the industry is doing it as far as I can see. They take these creative individuals and commoditize their creativity, because that's why we have them as products, right? Because the way they see life is interesting. Well, then we make them the fucking product and put all this pressure on them without helping them sustain their worth and their emotional health.
Sorry.
And then they fucking crumble.
Yeah.
And I want to address another kind of fear. I talked with Tim, my business partner, yesterday about this in terms of writing, songwriting. Everybody's scared about how their songs are going to come across, so they're paralyzed compositionally. I went from writing 1 to 2 songs a year to writing, shit, I wrote a reggae song this morning. I will write right now. I don't care, because I understood that I'm a writer. A river doesn't ask if it's a river, it just bees a river. A tree fucking just bees a tree. It doesn't question itself, it just grows. It doesn't know how it's gonna grow. It doesn't know if this side's gonna find more sunlight than that side. It just grows. So what does a writer do? I just write. So I have that constant stream of creativity flowing. I don't know what kind of water is going to come. Maybe it's water that churned up some soil. Maybe it's water that has some moss flowing in it. Maybe there's some patches of water that are cleaner than others.
This river is
But
awesome.
But that water never doesn't quench the thirst of somebody who dips into it. So some songs are better than others. But if I can just embrace the fact that I'm a songwriter, that I am that fucking river, I'm always going to get something that quenches my thirst.
And also some waterborne illness that will make you throw up a lot. Just saying. Sorry, Doc.
Well, it was a reggae song.
God.
You can't know what water is coming, but you can dip into it, and it's always gonna be there for you. More questions?
Any more?
I have a question. If you guys don't have a question, yeah, Natalie.
I would love to hear from Jamie about, I guess it's not a question, but it's more of a, as a young woman in the music industry, as I said, next to the girl, as I mean, there's lots of guys in here, but it's a really important thing that needs to be addressed, and I would love to just hear you talk about it.
I was in the shower today thinking, what if somebody asked me this question? I had an idea. I would love to tell you that it doesn't make a difference that you're a young woman. It does, or a woman in general. And even as far as recently with one of my new bosses, he said to me, it doesn't matter how much experience you have, it doesn't matter how much schooling you have, the fact that you're a woman, you're going to be treated differently, and people are gonna try to start shit with you. And you can take that as starting shit as far as giving you shit on a show or trying to fuck you. You know, you have to own yourself and know your worth and keep your respect. You know, if you lose your shit on somebody because they're giving you shit, then they're gonna know what buttons to push. You have to keep your composure. And you have, like, honestly, and people will tell you, you don't have to work extra hard or blah, blah. Yes, you do. You have to work extra hard to not only put up that front that you deserve respect because of who you are and what you do and what you know and what you can teach, but you also deserve that respect because of how you conduct yourself within the community that you work with or you work in. Whether that's, I mean, if you want to be a hoe, but own it. You know what I'm saying? Like you just have to own it. You have to know yourself. You have to own it, and you don't apologize to people. This is who I am. This is what I do, and this is how I conduct myself. If you don't shit where you eat, if you don't want to, you know, be with people in the industry, then don't be. Just have that standard and stick to it. You know. But self-worth is a huge thing because you're not only going to question it within yourself at times, but you're going to have the closest people, both personally and professionally, question it. And you just have to find your personal space in your mantras. I have mantras that I go through where you remind yourself that this is who you are. I mean, you couldn't be anybody else, right? Like, I've heard your music and I've heard Caitlin's music. Like, you were meant to be doing this. So you have to find it in yourself to have the strength to hand it to the world. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
How are we doing on time, guys? So when I first took on Natalie as my flagship artist, I knew that of all the experiences I could give to her, of all the knowledge I could invest in her, of all the pathways that could open up for her, I could not impart to her what it is like to be a woman in this industry. So it was a very intentional decision to keep looking for opportunities to put her in front of women influencers, and Jaime being one of those people. And I want to expand that out into my general advice to find a mentor. Find a mentor. Find somebody who is where you want to be. I have 5 mentors.
Can I also expand on Natalie's question just a little bit more? As another thing with women, you can't be afraid to pick up other women and to help them grow. One of my favorite quotes is, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. There is room in this industry for all of us. And it doesn't matter if it's another woman or a gentleman. Like, competition is good, but jealousy is bad. So just being supportive and encouraging and an ear for somebody to talk to or a shoulder to cry on. Just support the other women in your community.
Thank you so much.
I think voices are important, and I recently made a change on a festival lineup that I made a mistake on due to some very strong women standing up and saying no, saying this is not acceptable on the event that you're doing. I don't need to get into a ton of detail, but long story short, booked an artist for a festival, was really excited about what he brought to the table. clicked tweet to send it out to the world, like, we've added so-and-so to this festival. Within 10 minutes, I got 20 responses saying, oh, cool, you booked a rapist. Oh, okay, fill me in. So we took the tweet down, we went and did our research, and we talked about it, and turned out this person had raped a person in their community. And I hate talking about this stuff, but it's important that we do. Somebody who was somebody who was doing impressive work. They were outwardly doing impressive work in the community alongside this woman, and then they went back to his apartment, and he crossed so many lines, and it was like, then he just went back to work. And eventually, a couple years later, she found the strength to come out and say, look, this happened, and this artist and this advocate and this activist in his community abused his position and did this to me. And he was immediately, he said, yeah, this happened, I'm sorry. And the community held him accountable. There was a 15-month, super wild, long, professional and community-based program to let him and her come to grips with what happened, and kind of like, I don't know all the proper words, but basically it was to make amends, I guess, to the community. Maybe not, yeah, and it was a really cool thing of like, he wasn't, that woman felt so much love, and that community felt so much love, that they found a way for this person to get back into the community. And now they work next to each other in their community, and they share hugs at the end of the day, and like forgiveness was there. So we looked at it and said, okay, this happened in this community. We're going to push the envelope a little bit, and we're going to allow this person to perform at our event again. So we said, hey, here's a bunch of reading material. Here's all the steps he went through with his community. His community has let him back into these spaces, and immediately a bunch of women said, no, I come to this festival because I feel safe, because you don't allow people who have done these things to perform in your space. And I'm an abuse survivor, and they banded together. They said no. I invited them to my office, and they came, and they just told me, look, all of the things that he did, that's great for him, but I'm still not comfortable with the idea. And it's going to be, he's going to be there, or we're going to be there. And some of them were performers. Some of them were people that work for me. And they all came together, and they said no. And that voice mattered, and I dropped them back off the festival. And I said, look, we made a mistake. We kind of got into this idea that like this restorative justice program was okay for where we were. And people spoke up, and at no point did 38-year-old me get angry with the people that were speaking up. So I guess my whole point is use your voice, and the people that will respond to the voice in the positive way and the way you want them to are the ones you want to work with, and the ones that respond to your voice in a negative way are the people you need to avoid working with in the future. And I think that I can't at all tell anyone what it's like to be a woman in this business, but that was such an important thing for me, to just sit back and not be the decision maker in any fashion, and just let people let me know what their opinions are. And they made the decision in the end. They said, look, this is the thing that needs to happen, and we just said, okay, yeah, that's what needs to happen.
Thank you for sharing that. That is the dark underbelly of the music industry, is the objectification and victimization of women. I want to call out white dudes. I want to call out cis white dudes, because I am one, and I can do that. Reflect on your own misogyny. Reflect on your own racism. And if you think you don't have misogyny and racism to reflect on, you should be first in line to get help. Look inside of yourself, then look to your left and look to your right, and look who you can lift up. Look for ways to clear paths for people that don't have your privilege. Use your position to elevate other people. It's your responsibility. And if you don't do it, I'll call you out. And I hope you call me out when you see me miss those opportunities.
Yeah.
Final thoughts from Nate and Jaime.
You go first.
I go first? All right. I think going back to what we were talking about with the planetarium and those ideas, I think don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of living out a vision that seems impossible. If people put up walls, go around them, go over them, go through them. If your president puts up a wall, there's ladders and airplanes. Just and know that people like us that look like we're formulaic and we're just like spitting out show after show after show, we want to do other stuff too. So if you have this vision and you just want to reach out, some people will just say no, but you know what? I know the person who does want to do stuff like that. And sometimes I'll say, dude, let's go. Like, let's do this and let's rally. I'm going to get everybody here and all y'all, and we're just going to go and like do a show in the street or whatever it is that we're going to do. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions and to just impart your vision in a way. The worst thing that can happen is someone says, you know, that's not for me. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you get 100 no's, that one yes that you get is going to be very, very, very important. And this business is all about saying no, and you should be able to say no too. If you think that something doesn't fit what you're going for, just move on to the next thing. Don't be desperate. Don't take things that don't make sense for you. Don't take things that don't feel right. Don't take things that don't fit your grand plan. I asked Dylan like what his vision is, and I always ask artists this, like, what's the dream? Are you headlining Radio City Music Hall someday? Is that like where you're at, like in that dream that you have and you wake up and you're like freaking out and you like have to go write a song? Like, is that your vision, or is it like headlining Coachella someday? Or maybe it's just getting in a van with your friends and driving around the country and playing gigs until you know, are exhausted and don't want to do anything else. 300 dates a year. Like, whatever your dream is, don't be afraid to share that with people and say, hey, is this something you're passionate about too? Maybe we could work on this together, one little part of it. So ask questions, dream big, and just don't be afraid to tell people like us who seem like we kind of have this like groove that we're in. We love to jump out of that from time to time and really get behind somebody. And just because Jamie books all those festivals that are down on the riverfront or in Royal Oak or whatever, I bet she'd love to jump off and do something on the side too that just utilizes her skills in a way. Like, she can solder your freaking pedal board back together. Don't be afraid to ask her. She can do it. She already said she could.
Jamie, final thoughts.
Yeah, I made the mistake of letting the whole Meeting Services Incorporated know that I could solder. So the lighting guys, the video guys, the audio guy, I was stuck in the corner soldering a lot. So I would just drive home stepping out of your comfort zone, because you're never gonna grow if you walk the same line. So step out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to talk to people, go out there and network. Email people, cold call people, but be authentic and personable. Those are the conversations and the connections that go a long way. And be original. I remember there was one time on when I used to book Code of the Cuts, which was the hip hop stage on the Warped Tour. There was a group from Salt Lake City, I think. They sent me a mini fridge with Mad Dog and Boone's Farm in it, and I was like, yes. What?
A whole fridge?
A little mini fridge, one of those.
Hell yeah.
And it was out there, but it made me take a second look at their music, and I was like, wait a minute, these guys are pretty fun. And so just have that originality and that personality that grabs people's attention, and don't be afraid of it. And just build your community. I think building your community and the people that believe in you and support you no matter what, I think that's the key.
Thank you so much, Nate Dorough and Jaime Wilkins. I want to just do a quick plug. If you have not already, as an artist, sign up for Art Speaks and Needs, please submit. The deadline is April 1st. And go check out the show at the Crowfoot on April 14th. There are, 15 or 16?
There's a lot.
Yeah, incredible local bands.
3 stages. It's all for charity. Well, it's a lot for charity, including bands. Bands are charity.
It's
too
like
sometimes.
5. It's like 5 different charities too, and it's a really cool model. You get $2 and you walk in the door from a token. You get to pick the charity, and they award the highest and least grossing charity a prize. Plus, you get to see a lot of great local music. So go there,
And
network.
Natalie's gonna be there.
Natalie's going to be there. And I encourage you guys to hang out after this event right now and just network as much as possible. Shake as many hands as you can in this room. Guys, thanks so much for making this an awesome industry forum. See you next time.
Thank you guys.